Welcome to the Floor Academy podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Hadeen, owner of Illustrious Hardwoods in Mesa, Arizona. With me this week is Ron Teljeur, the owner of Acorn Wood Floors outside of Vancouver. You know, we got a little Canada going on today. We got Canada joining us. And that's me just, being a yank and rude. And I know you're Canada, but you can be Canada. It's more fun. So what are we going to talk about? Ron built his business, and he had six crews out there subcontracting for him. They were out running around. He built this business up, and that's what everybody wants to do. Hey, let's scale our business. Let's grow, right? Because if we can do it, then we can have other people do it. We'll make more money. It'll be super easy. It can't be that difficult. Well, more money, more problems. Ron scaled down because he didn't get to touch the tools, and a lot of us, that's what we love about doing this, is that we love the art of it. And so he's able to be back on the tools now. He's got less headaches. He's still got a couple crews out there doing some stuff, but he's not having to run around, put out fires, manage paperwork, only do estimates. We're going to talk about what it looked like to scale it up, what the problems were within that, and what it looks like now with his business and why it runs more efficiently for him. So that being said, why do we do this? Why is Floor Academy even here? Every week we are releasing an episode. We're talking with other tradesmen in the flooring, tile, and stone industries about the business side of the business. Why? Because craftsmen are exactly that. They're craftsmen. They're great at the hand skills. They're great at the art behind it. Not always so great at the business side. And sadly, if we want to grow and scale our business, if we want to run even a successful business just for us, we need to understand that side. So we're having those conversations every week for you to get those little nuggets to take back, implement into your business, make it run more successful, make it run more profitably, and hopefully get you doing what you want to do. I like wanting to run a business because I want to pay people to do all the things I hate. That's the ultimate goal. I want to pay people to do all the things I hate. So we need processes, we need systems, we need to know how to do it, how to implement it, what it looks like. And not every business model is meant to be somebody else's business model. So let's have those conversations, see how everybody's doing things a little bit differently. Wow. Check out Floor Academy Pod, go to the shop. You can support us over at patreon.com/Floor Academy. If you're interested in something beyond the podcast to help grow and scale your business, reach out about a mastermind group. I'd be happy to discuss what I have going on a few nights a week with those. They are an awesome accountability tool. They are awesome to get information from your peers on how they're growing and scaling their businesses. It keeps you actively involved in doing the work it's going to take to make your business run more effectively. Whew. Okay. That's a lot. I'll shut up.
There you go.
Ron, who are you? What do you do? Why do you do it?
I'm Ron Teljeur. Basically, I've been in the flooring business since I was, pretty much born, I guess. My dad had a shop with my uncle that ran 59 through 84. I started with them in the summers as a helper, whatever. When I was 13, went through UBC, got a degree, didn't use it anyway, and ended up back in this. I'm glad I learned a trade. It's a great thing.
Okay.
So Acorn, we've been running it now I've been running it for 28 years. It's been around for 30. My dad started it with my mom and my wife, and my brother was doing the work at the time. And I was working at another company that my dad also happened to start. Got tired of sales and the politics in an office because I was working there for 3 years in sales. And that didn't make me happy. I was the heaviest I'd ever been in my life. And needed a change. So I took over Acorn and moved on from there, basically.
Okay. So when was Acorn started?
In 92.
92. Okay. 30 years. Yeah. Nice. That's and then what? The other company you said was 59 to 84, so like 24 years?
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
good run on two businesses of like longevity. What did he why did he shut the first one down for? Or did he sell it?
Economy and also bankruptcy laws changed. Um, Before you had to pay out, you had to sell your assets, and they changed the law so you could keep your house and pay pennies on the dollar. And a whole whack of people decided to do that at the same time. So we had a lot of collectibles on some bigger jobs. And the trend was that they were just going to allow these people to pay pennies on the dollar and keep the house. So there's no money in that.
Yeah.
And we shut the store.
Okay.
That was the big reason for it. It also was a bad economy at the time
Mm-hmm.
too, so
Mm-hmm.
it didn't help.
Yeah.
But that was kind of a wake up call just to see how bad things can go very quickly,
Mm-hmm.
just because somebody decides to change a rule or something. So you
Yeah.
always got to watch. That's one of the things, I guess, for if you're running a business, you got to be aware of how legislation and stuff is going to affect you. You have to look sort of broad story and just see where something can catch you off guard.
For sure.
So you always got to be listening. You got to, stuff like your podcast, industry newsletters, and that sort of thing are a great source to see where things are going. Not so much design trends and stuff like that. I have my own opinions on those, but basically, business is business, and it doesn't matter whether you're selling a wood floor, a carpet,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. It doesn't matter what you're selling. Business is business, and all those. And if you're in construction, you should be aware of stuff that's going to affect building trends and that sort of thing. As a business, we've just shied away from new construction because unless it's custom homes,
Okay.
there's just no money in it. So I don't feel like working for $2 a square foot.
Yeah. No, look, if you get nothing else out of this episode, that's great advice, right? Business is business, but pay attention to the world around you. And I think you got to keep that war chest around, right? You got to keep that little bit of money around to keep you afloat, right? And so
Yeah.
if love him, hate him, I don't care how you feel about Dave Ramsey. There's tons of opinions. But he's going to tell you that you want to get at least 3 to 6 months of personal finances saved up so that you can float yourself through a rough time. If you're not doing that for your business, why are you treating your business finances any different than your personal finances? That's insane, right? So save up 3 to 6 months. If you're a bigger company, save up a year. And I'm talking everything. I don't care your payroll, enough to cover rent on any buildings, all that stuff. Start saving it up because you never know what's coming around the corner. And then when people start freaking out, now you can look at Warren Buffett, right? And if people are scared, it's time to move in and start buying things. And if people are buying everything, then it's probably time to like back off and analyze what's really going on, right? So tons of stuff within that, but I couldn't agree more. So let's talk about Acorn, right? So when you took over, where was it at, right? How many people were involved? And then where did you take that to?
It was just my brother and a friend of ours. Me and my brothers had subcontracted and done all kinds of things before. So we've been in the business pretty much all our lives. My brother's still an installer. He sold his business to his partners in Edmonton, and he's still in there. But basically, it was just me, my brother, and a friend, my wife, and my mom doing bookkeeping and stuff like that, office work. And then we started. The proper name of the company is actually Acorn Wood Floor Maintenance Ltd. And what we did, or what the objective was to do all the stuff that nobody else wanted to do, all the cleaning and the recoats. There's good money in that,
There is, for sure. I got a power scrubber. I ain't a fool. I haven't used it on a wood
Yeah,
floor yet, but
yeah.
I picked
We
up a
just
power scrubber. I'm researching some stuff, man.
yeah. I've been doing it with a buffer for years, but we finally bought a dirt dragon. But
Okay.
it's funny we didn't get that till like 30 years after we got that name, right? But anyway, so yeah, so we started getting more into our own work. We were doing mainly subcontract work at that time for installs on projects. I didn't really want to do that. And we started moving more towards doing installs and this was a home-based business at the time. So we started doing more custom work, more installs, and sort of more defining the company as a like all-round hardwood company.
Okay.
We didn't do anything but hardwood at that time. So then we started adding some more people, some more crews. By the time we had, I guess we had two subs working. We opened our first showroom, and that was in 90. What was that be? No, I was not 90s anymore. That would have been 2000 because my middle son was just born. So,
Okay.
so from 2000 on, we've had a retail outlet with shop space, warehouse, all in one.
Do you staff that or no?
I did have like my wife, by the time child number three came along, she didn't really want to be in the office anymore for some reason. Don't know why. So anyway, so we did end up hiring and going through, we'll call it burning through a few different front end people. It was just basically manning the phones, taking information for estimates and stuff like that. As we got to about four crews, I started spending more time in the office. And, by the time we hit six, I was doing nothing but. So that took about, I guess we were in that location for 13 years and probably had six crews running by the fourth year at that location.
Okay.
We were doing radio advertising. We were doing print advertising. Yellow Pages still existed.
Mm-hmm.
So we're spending actually a fair bit on branding and identifying. We did also home shows and stuff like that. So and the way we did it, like we had a logo, we always started out with a certain look to everything. We tried to be as consistent as possible. So it was like sort of just building the brand.
Mm-hmm.
Most people assumed we were actually larger than we were. They still do. Just because of recognition.
Yeah.
And now it's 30 years on. So we really don't advertise. We haven't done home shows. Mainly that ended with COVID. And since our business actually went up, I didn't see any reason to do them. I love meeting people. I love doing those home shows, and stuff like that. But you got to look at it. Okay, I'm taking a week of my time because by the time you set up the booth, man the booth through the show, take it down, you spent a week, and how much did you miss on income? Like, do the returns justify it? For a while, it did.
Yes,
but for the last few years, you do get some nice jobs out of it sometimes. But right now, we're working basically through referral, repeat. I mean, is it a way to grow a business? No. But is it a way to maintain it? Sure. And that's the thing is, so when we were at six crews, I was doing nothing but paperwork. I was doing, you have to do a lot of estimates. We still were landing about 50% of the estimates. And we weren't we're never rarely the cheapest guy. If I make a mistake, we might be. I always tell people that when the customers, I say, if I'm the cheapest price, let me know. I've probably made a mistake. But
that's a good line.
It's we've never been low end, but in order to generate sales for that many crews, I had to make some compromises on the products I carried. So we carried some products that couldn't be refinished and a couple Chinese products, and that didn't go well.
Okay.
So
So,
we,
well, you have a set of standards, right? So you like,
yeah.
I
Well,
don't.
as a guy who does this, I mean, you have, you know, I'm a perfectionist,
Mhm.
and I'll admit that freely now. I never used to realize I was. Uh, so I just I just got to the point where I didn't want to keep repairing jobs and going up and putting in the molding that didn't get, you got a $6,000 balance holding on a reducer,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
that sort of thing. I just got tired of it. Um, and not, started gaining weight again. When that happened, that was actually one of the things is like, God, I got to get back on the tools again. I dropped 50 pounds when I started back on the
Wow,
tools.
nice.
So, you know, it's,
So there's a couple of things going on here, right? So you open the shop, which is a great line of revenue, but you were picky about what you wanted to carry, and so I agree with that. Like, everyone knows I do a lot of LVP, and so the LVP that I have in my shop currently, I've handpicked. I feel good about it. But what's funny is that I refuse to sell an engineered hardwood if it doesn't have at least a 3 millimeter wear layer. And so
yeah, same.
you probably know that the NWFA just came out with new guidelines, and it has to have at least a 2.5 millimeter wear layer in order to be sanded and finished in the future, or to be considered sandable, right? They came out with classifications of like what these things can do now in the future. And so,
Yeah, it's about 10 years too late, but yeah, sure.
but I look, I haven't sold a wood floor out of my shop and before my shop in a very long time, because everyone looks at it and they're like, why is your product like $13 a square foot, Kyle, when I can go over here and I can get it for $5? And I explained the differences and all of that. They don't care. They just want the wood floor, and they're okay spending, you know, at the end of the day, we're talking, I think my floor would start at like 20. And if they go get the cheaper product and they use slightly cheaper glue, maybe they get themselves down to like 15 total, right? We're saving like
Yeah,
$5 a square foot, which on 1,000 square feet, it's $5,000. It's a decent chunk of change. But what I realize is most people don't plan on staying in their home long enough to ever have to sand and finish it. So they don't care.
yeah,
And then it's somebody else's problem to take it out. But me, like, ethically, I can't do it.
yeah.
But then, okay, now let's look at this conundrum, right? I'm okay putting in the luxury vinyl plank. So, like, maybe my ethics are
Yeah, but
screwed
you know
up.
the expectations of it, right? You
Well, I
know
do.
that,
I do. But what, if I'm going to look at this ethically, of like, I want to allow someone to sand and finish a floor so they don't have to pay a ton of money to remove a cruddy wood floor, but then I'm going to
yeah,
fill their
yeah,
house with plastic that's going to end up in the dump in 3 years. Like, maybe my priorities are skewed here, and I should just take the money. Like, let's get them the cheaper wood floor and just take the money, and who knows? Anyways,
well, margins are way better in the vinyl. I mean, we sell Carndine, which is definitely not on the low end of the scale.
no.
And that's pretty much the only one we sell. And we only on laminate, I try not to sell it, but
Hmm.
the stuff we sell is either it's European. We don't sell any.
Okay.
There is not a single Chinese product in my shop,
Nice.
not one. And that's on the West Coast, where we are a port. I mean, we are one of the biggest ports on the West Coast.
Hmm.
So, and we have a very big Chinese population here. So we have connections to China, probably more. So it's more like, like San Francisco kind of connections.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of guys, and the thing that saves us a little bit is that if those guys want to sell it into the U.S., they actually have to conform to CARB standards.
Yes.
But if they plan on only selling it in Canada, they don't have to. It's a voluntary compliance here for formaldehyde.
Oh, good.
So the U.S., I'm all over those U.S. laws. But I tell my customers, like, if this is a Chinese guy bringing it in from his friend's mill, whatever, they'll use whatever they need. They don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's what I've seen is consistency in the Chinese product is unheard of. I mean, you might get a really good product one time, next time, not so much.
Totally.
So that's really where they're lacking is, and there was a really good article, I don't know how many years ago. This is when the show in Shanghai can't remember what the name of that show is. But it's one of the big shows. And the NWFA had an article in it about what to expect. And so when you go in there, you see a product and it's, I don't know, $475 a foot.
Mm-hmm.
And you go, can you do better on that? Can you do it for $4, whatever? And so in your mind, you're thinking as a North American, probably European as well, can I get this product
Correct.
for $4?
No, they can
in
do it
their
for
head,
$4.
They're going, what do I have to do to it to sell it for $4?
Yep.
Their thinking is right. It's like, why would you sell something that's the same product for less money? And this I don't get. I don't get about all the sales. We have no sales. We don't do promotions. We don't do anything unless the manufacturer is giving a break. Then we simply do not have sales. We have one price level. We do not have a contractor level. We don't have a retail level. We have one price level. That's it.
I mean, I'll sell to a contractor at a discount, but it's so that he can go make the money, right? If I got to place the phone call and a contractor is going to buy the product so that he can sell it to a client, like, I'm okay giving him a discount, right? I have to have the shop. I have to make the phone call. Like, I deserve something, but like, I'll let him make the money because he's going to do the legwork. And then if it's cash and carry, I'll do a deal on that because there's way less liability of me installing it. Correct. And then I have like actual retail costs, but I get it. Look, everyone's got a model and it works for them. I want to get us back on track a little bit, although you make a great point about how they have the right mindset on engineering the deal. They're essentially the equivalent to what we're talking about in at least with contracting would be change the scope of work to fit the price that they're asking for, right? When the client says, can you do it for, $1,500 less? Well, I mean, I can, but we're going to have to look at what do you want to give up, right? Do you want to do your own removal? Do you want to change the finish or the product that's being installed? Like, where are we coming up with this $1,500? Because that's what as you said, right? That's what the Chinese are doing when you ask them if they can do it cheaper. We as contractors automatically think it's about the dollar, and it's not. It's sometimes it's just. People ask for discounts to ask for discounts. I'm that asshole. I ask just to ask, like, because a lot of people don't know what to say. Like, I'll go into Walmart and be like, "Can I get 5% off?" Okay, because the cashier's just nervous. Like, like, what am I? Big deal. You told me no, right? So, like, most people ask to ask. Exactly. Most people ask to ask. So, and then they don't know how to deal with being asked, and you'll get a discount. It's rather fun to see. So change the scope. I think that's great. But all right, so you started, it's you and your wife and your brother and your mom was involved, and then we scaled it up. We got this shop. We've got 6 crews running, but you were miserable.
I was not a happy guy.
So what did that look like that made you so miserable? Like, what were the struggles?
Constantly fixing other people's work. I had a hard time wrapping my head around the fact of they're not the owner of the business. They're just there to make some money. And, they're not going to have the same level of investment in the job that gets done. And that was a hard lesson to learn. So I just figured, okay, well, what's our solution? And honestly, I was making less money with more guys. Because I paid, like, a good chunk of the money went out in labor. Of course, materials cost what they cost. I was probably not high enough on my margin at that point either. We work higher now. I think when you start out, you always think, well, I just got to, it's about price. I guess when you're starting, you don't have a reputation. So I guess that's true to a point.
A little bit, not a lot of it.
But you can generate a reputation pretty quick.
Yes.
Especially if you start with good products and a good and stress that, when you do a quote, do it all up in and make it so that you show everything that you're doing. So the number of coats, the brand of finish, and get them to get, so then the other guys are, you might be going up against a guy who's doing oil modified 2 coats, and you're going to be doing water-based 3 or 4 coats, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But you're selling a better product versus a cheap oil mod. And so point it out and
Yes.
get them to say, okay, well, and it's sort of that same thing we just talked about. So, get them to quote it with the stuff I'm quoting and see where you're at. And so that's, so what we did is we basically, I stopped selling anything that was basically bargain price so that I could move material to keep my guys working. So that raised the price of the job. And even if you stay at the same margins, you're making more money on something that's worth more money.
Correct.
And you have to sell less of it to make the same amount of money. So I got rid of a couple of crews got rid of themselves just through what seems to be an issue with our industry, and that's drugs and alcohol.
Yep.
So I lost 2 guys that way, or I lost them, I guess. So I was down to 4. Another guy started getting allergic reactions to, we use basic coatings. I think it was an issue with aziridine or something. So he couldn't really do sanding and finishing anymore. He's getting rashes from dust as well. So that was number 3. So we're now down to myself and because I went back into it at that point.
Okay.
So I think we had 3 guys. And then we basically hit 2008, which Canada did pretty good through the crash, but it eventually, it was more like 2010 when it hit here.
Mm-hmm.
And I just didn't have the work, so I had to let another guy go. He actually ended up being one of the all-star sales guys at one of my local. He was my least experienced guy, and he went off to become like the all-star sales guy at the local distributor, which I found kind of funny. But so we kept John Pingall. He does basically all my sanding and finishing.
Okay.
And he was running 2 crews. So basically there's me, John, and his guys, and that's where we're at now. So we've been going like that probably. We had one other guy who came on, and he ended up moving north anyway. So he was here for a bit.
Okay.
But he was mainly working with me as a helper. Since then, my oldest son started working with me, so he kind of came in and took over a bit there, and now my middle son's working with me. So that's where we're at now, is me and my sons.
You're kind of growing because you have your sons, and they should eventually be able to go out. But are you looking to run? You're not looking to run more crews. Like, that's not the goal, right? You're trying to limit what you're doing.
I could use one more sort of, we'll call it a Swiss Army knife of a guy. Somebody who can do what we do. So we do custom mill work in my shop where we need the shop space. We do sanding and finishing. We do installs. We do repairs, cleaning, recoats, pretty much anything you do to a wood floor, we do. But we do, the main thing that sets us apart is we can make curved nosings. We can make curved bits, custom bits, custom stair treads. We can do a lot of stuff that a lot of other companies, we've actually made stuff for our competition. I don't care if I do that.
Yeah.
It as long as I make my money, I'm okay.
Yep. No, totally
and
makes
we're
sense.
not going to, we're in a big enough market. I'm not sure exactly how big Greater Vancouver is now. I think it's 3 million. There's lots of room.
For sure.
And I'm a small company. So that's one of the luxuries too, is that if you don't have to pump out tons of work so that to keep a bunch of crews busy, because I always felt guilty if we ran out of work, that these guys who have families and whatever else, you're responsible for them making money. And I mean, they're subs, so they can go get their own work. They can do whatever they want. But they still first depend on me. So
yes, no,
that was a bit of weight off your head too, right? Because you don't have to deal with that responsibility.
totally. I agree. I think having when I had employees on board, right, there was an extra added stress of like, okay, I've guaranteed this guy a paycheck. I got to deliver on that now, and that's something I've noticed about retailers. I feel a lot of larger retail shops are charging the mediocre rates that they charge compared to what guys like you and I will go out and try and charge, because they have if they don't keep these guys busy, then they're going to move on. Right? They're going to go find another shop, or they're going to, go find their own thing, and they're not going to be around anymore. But it's crazy because I look at it from, if I can cherry pick all the good clients that are willing to pay more and wait for me, and let's say like I could scale up and hit 2 million a year, and the equivalent of like a larger retail shop on that 2 million would be like 4 or 5 million. I feel good because I have way less liability, and I took my time and I did them all right. Like I didn't have to pound them out and have a bunch of guys out there hustling to hit that number. And so that's always kind of confused me. And look, I'm still young in business. I get that. I got a lot to learn. I don't run a big retail store, so maybe I'm missing something. But I don't see why I want to keep 10 crews busy running around, and I just feel there's a ton of money left on the table. And then I come in and I bid something, or you come in and you bid something. Everyone's like, "Oh my God, you're like twice as much." I'm like, "Yeah, well, there's a reason for that. Like, there's a reason that I'm much more expensive, and it's because I'm going to take my time and do it right. And a lot of times, I don't think the retail shops are spending the time to have their guys do it right because they're living paycheck to paycheck. They can't afford to. So, there's
and I mean that's
room to play with it.
Like, that's one thing too, is that if you're like, you got places that aren't paying well for the guys that are subs, or even if they're hourly, they're not inspired. I mean, I like contract because if you do a good job and you have a good system, you can make a lot of money. As long as you're organized and you can install properly or sand and finish properly, whatever. So I mean, so we have a group plan that actually I've configured it so that I can actually offer it to my guys. So we have universal healthcare here, but there's a lot of stuff that isn't covered, dental, eye care, that sort of stuff.
Okay.
And of course, there's some other benefits to that. Travel insurance, of course, is part of those packages and stuff like that. But you try to add some benefit to working for you, so you can keep the guys around, especially if they got families. Because dental care is not cheap.
No.
And that's probably our biggest expense aside from, it's probably it. Eye care. Not everybody has. I should have some glasses, but I don't. Well, I don't take care of me, right? That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's like most of us.
Yes. Well, you mentioned systems and processes to make things run smoother. So I want to dig into that. I'm going to interrupt us for just a second here with a quick word from Johns Manville. Not all foam boards have the high performance that GoBoard does. Johns Manville has been producing rigid foam boards for decades for commercial roofs. What does this mean for flooring and shower applications if they aren't exposed to the same harsh elements that a roof is? If it's good enough for a commercial roof, then it's even better for your flooring, countertop, or shower project, especially at a reasonable price. Visit www.jm.com/GoBoard for more information. All right, Ron, you mentioned systems and processes and making things run smooth, and that's going to do it. So when you were at Six Crews, you had the store, you're running around, you were never on the tools. Would you say that maybe you just didn't have the systems and processes in place to make that all run smoothly and hold the sub crews accountable to the crappy work they were putting out for you? Or was it just a management struggle to make that happen for you? And look, everyone has a different skill set too. So it just may not be your bag, right? There's a lot of things we could look at to do this, but like, do you think that systems and processes could have been stronger to make the company function at the level you wanted it to?
Yes. I mean, that we have more processes and a better system in place now than we did then. But if you're not improving as a business, you're not really in business.
Yeah. Did scaling down
at that time we started? That time we started creating templates for estimates and work orders and stuff like that. We had a bunch of. It was pretty crude in the beginning for work orders, mainly because it was just mostly me doing and my brother doing the work. So it's like, what are we doing? We're doing this. Okay. Yeah. So Mark goes off and does that. And of course, as you grow, you need more of a system. So a friend of mine helped me create templates. So when somebody called in, we could hit a button and it would bring up the template. We fill it in and I go out with that paperwork. And we had that fairly early on, but the work order side followed later. And it was sort of by demand that it had to happen. Just because it identifies all the scope of work and the finishes they're going to need and all of that stuff. So we definitely improved that. And we pretty much had it dialed in. When would that be? So it would probably be about when we were about to start going smaller again. So we can look back at our work orders. They're pretty complete. But we keep on doing it, just kind of leveling it up a little. And you don't realize it until you start looking back. It's like, well, what stain mix did we use on that job? For the last probably 7-8 years, we can tell you exactly the stain mix we used and everything. Go further back than that, it's a bit cryptic. So the more detail you can put in, the better you do yourself and your guys. So if you are running more guys, you're going to need more detail on those jobs because you're going to have less contact with them. When you start running 4 and 5 crews, you can't talk to each guy for half an hour. You'd be wasting half your day just getting everybody set up, and they're sitting there wasting time. So,
definitely.
And they're subcontractors. They don't want to sit around. They just want to get it done. So, that was definitely an issue. And I looked at several management systems. A lot of them they're made for massive companies. What's that? Roll something. I can't remember what it's called.
Rollmaster?
It's a massive thing. Rollmaster. Yeah. A friend of mine, well, actually, he's the guy, he's currently our landlord, where we're going out of. And his company does somewhere in the range of $70 million a year. He sold the company. He's retained the building, which, if you know Vancouver, that's a good thing. He has all these full on applications. Everybody has to learn. I build my own spreadsheet, so that helps. But I do need. I've looked at several. There's one at was at the Fort Worth. Maybe it was Fort Worth, where they introduced one guy from the industry and another computer guy. They put together a thing, but it was only iPhone. So I was hoping it was. I think they may have it on Android now. I'm going to go to this year's NWFA show, so hopefully. But that's one thing I'm actually looking at doing is trying to up that side. To be able to.
There's a lot of options now, to be honest. There's Measure Square, there's Rollmaster, RFMS. There's a company
I've looked at all of those, and they were all basically a bit too. A lot of them are based on roll good items.
Yes.
So the measuring systems were based on that. And of course, we're a simpler system like Tile, where it's just a square foot.
Yeah. So there's a company that came out called FloorZap that is getting into the space, and it's kind of like an all-in-one thing, right? It's going to let you do measure and estimates, and then it allows you to it has the CRM in it as well. You can
Yeah.
look at, I want to say Measure Square. I don't remember which one. A company called Broadloom bought one of the measuring systems, and now they're integrating it with their CRM that they have, and so they're making kind of an all-in-one. There's stuff out there. What
Yeah.
I've heard from people that I've talked with in the industry is you don't really need anything like that until you hit about 1 million a year. But anything over 1 million a year, you're doing a significant amount of business, and you want an industry specialized software to start handling your stuff,
Yeah.
because on it, like, I operate off of spreadsheets. I literally, I have a spreadsheet that does my estimates and my invoices for me, and then I print them out. There's some on the printer just here to the left of me, and I scan them and send them off to the bookkeeper, and the bookkeeper enters everything into QuickBooks. And right now I don't need QuickBooks to do anything fancy for me, but I've talked to like larger retailers and stuff, and they're like, this QuickBooks doesn't work well for flooring dealers, and it just doesn't do what we need it to do on once you
Yeah.
like get to a larger scale. And so I think that's a good thing to point out here, is
That's
that
yeah.
you like, there's a level, right? And you're somewhere in the middle where you need more systems and processes, but there's not like this thing that meets this lower level. And
Yeah.
those systems can be a significant investment because it's a monthly recurring fee to be able to
Oh yeah.
use it.
Yeah.
But what is it? Takes money to make money.
What's the return
right?
on it, right?
Correct. And that's something you have to be able to keep track of, right? And sometimes you got to lose a little bit of money to get to that next level. But I think it's a great point that you bring up. Like, we've done things to get to this next level, and now with you teaching your sons, if you sit here and you make that Swiss Army knife you're talking about, right? You got two kids, both learning, and if they can become this kind of all-around fix that you need as they continue to progress, well, now you're right back where you started, and you're like, well, now I'm back to 5-6 crews. I might need to like figure this out and put some stuff in place.
And that's one thing, is that I would probably, I mean, I turned 59 in February, so I'm I'm getting up there. But yeah, it's to train them, because that's sort of what my dad did. I would drive around with him, and we'd talk business. Is what we did. And so I learned a lot about the business side of the business from my dad. My uncle was more the hands-on kind of guy. He was a really good tradesman, but he was not the business running type.
Okay.
He did really well when the shop closed for Teljeur Floors. He did really well just subcontracting, and that was his thing.
Yeah.
I'm a bit. I don't. Well, we did do the subcontracting thing, and the reason I got out of doing it is we were working for about 6 or 7 different shops. We're making really good names for all these other shops, but we'd show up to a job with I don't know, some Bruce Sterling strip, and we'd be looking at a concrete floor. And it's like, where's this going? Oh, it's going here. It's like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, things change in the industry. Could you do it today? I guess there's better adhesives. There's all kinds of systems you can use.
I don't want to.
Would I recommend it? No. I don't like depending on the technology to make a system work.
I don't like putting clamps on
I'm
3/4 inch.
School.
Yeah, well, I don't like putting clamps on 3/4 inch thick hardwood and trying to get a bowed piece to bend straight. It just doesn't work well.
Yeah. I mean, some mills actually mill stuff straight, and others not so much. So
it's I'm with you. So it's I mean, we're looking at trying to. You were building names for other people, and I think that's like, I'm too much of a diva to like go and work for somebody else and build them a name and like take a cut. Like, I like doing the work to get the job and getting the full reward. So I think your dad probably instilled like this business side in you, right? There's just like, I don't know, man. The piece of cheese is never big enough when I'm subcontracting.
Yeah, I mean, well, it can be. I mean, you definitely have less worries. You don't have to worry about all that stuff about like, supporting your guys and doing the paperwork and keeping the government happy. Um, you don't have to worry that much. Well, you have to keep the government happy. That's in all cases. But, you don't have as much of a workload. You go home, you can turn off and go do whatever. You can spend 12 hours on a smoker and make a really nice brisket.
You can do
I
that
don't
with the
have that kind
business.
of time.
You know what? See, this is where those systems and processes come into place, though. Like, you can get to an 8-hour day. You just got to run it, right? It's got to shut down at some point. And maybe it's 10 hours, right?
Yeah.
But, like, you just got to
I
shut
don't
it
work
down.
as many hours as I used to. I used to work 16-hour days.
Mm-hmm. That'll kill
every
you.
day.
Yeah, it'll kill you.
Oh, yeah. I'm pretty sure it probably almost did. I mean, that's one thing I am. So when I go to the shows right now, what I'm looking for, and I haven't found what a good fit yet. That one, the Android or the iPhone app, I like the way it works. I am not going to invest in Apple because once you start one thing, you got to basically do everything. And I'm not going to, like I said, I'm still talking on a BlackBerry as we talk here. But it's the Android. It's not the BlackBerry because that doesn't work anymore. So I want to look at, like, I've always been sort of more leading edge the whole time through. We were the first company to have, actually second in Vancouver, to have serious dust collection systems.
Okay.
I had the first Epic HD in Canada, a bunch of other things that we did before other companies. I always try to be on, and I'm still that way. I don't like settling for, the status quo.
Okay.
I'll try new things, and if I like them, we keep them. If I don't, I don't. And it's just, but you got to keep on modifying. But for me, that's my next thing, is to really make it, like, make the system a bit more of a system than we have right now. We have a pretty decent system, but once you stray outside of that, so when somebody calls me on my cell phone because they have my cell phone number, I don't give it out to every customer or anything.
Yeah.
But when they have, a builder or somebody where you have to give them your number. And then what they do is they bypass the office.
Yes.
Which is the first mistake.
Yes.
So I try not to be mean about it, but it's like, I'm on a job site. I have nothing to write down. I'm going to write your details on a piece of wood. Hopefully I don't install it in the floor. It's not, you have to kind of stick to your guns and stay to your, whatever system you have,
yes.
Stick to it.
Yes. Well, that's the key. So, you got to use it, right? You got to do the work and implement it. I talked with a gentleman yesterday that's running a couple of crews and trying to scale his business. And he's talking about how he does a lot of like new build construction stuff for different custom home builders. And one guy reaches out to him through his cell phone and text messages. And another guy's like sending emails, and another guy's doing this. And I was like, well, you got to stop that, dude. It's like, you are going to lose projects and where you're keeping track of them. I was like, you need to make one way that everyone contacts you to get a new project done. End of story. Yeah, and there's only one way. And so even for you, right? Like, they're trying to call your cell phone. You're like, no, you got to call the office.
Yeah.
That's great. That's perfect.
I don't mind it. Like, so if it's a new lead, it has to go through the office. Yes. I don't mind giving, some details about, should we do it this way or that way? Okay, that's fine. Mm-hmm. But I have a major company that we deal with. So my friend's company just sold. We do a lot of their restoration stuff and some custom install stuff, so that stuff that's a little beyond what their regular crews can do. Those guys are just impossible. Every single guy contacts, or girl in that case too, they contact me in a different way. I tell them, just keep it on email. I know email's old school. I do text. I'm not that old, but
it gives you a record.
It's easy to trackable thing,
yes,
right?
That's exactly it.
You can have a conversation back and forth, and it's like, and if they start saying things that you didn't say, you can go, well, scroll back up to December 4th when we had that conversation. You can see I said this.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, I worked for a company where the owner was basically a loose cannon. He would say one thing and then do something else. So that's where I worked in sales for the 3 years. So what he would do is you'd have to go to him to get a price for the materials for the job you're selling. And he'd give you just a wing off quote to you. It's like, okay. And you have it written down at least. And then you come back and the job comes back with a lower margin. And he starts asking you and you go, well, you told me this. And, so the freight is like $1 a square foot low or something. Who knows?
Yeah.
But that affects your margin pretty heavily. So that was a real good lesson. And it was a good experience to learn how not to do something. Because it caused a lot of problems within the company at that place. It was a big operation too. They ran 10, 12 crews, 3 salespeople in the front, reception, full accounting, 2 people in accounting. So it was a big operation. But
sure.
he was running it just too loose on the quoting side, especially. It was an interesting experience. It was definitely a learning experience. You learn, no matter what you're doing, you learn something, good, bad, or otherwise.
I hope everybody's learning as
well,
they
some
do
people
things.
don't seem to learn. That's the thing.
No, I think that's great advice, right? Like, you worked in this system that wasn't working because it wasn't organized enough on the money side, right? He doesn't know his numbers. He's just throwing them out there. Go do it for this, and then you're wondering why am I going broke? And you can track it back to, I didn't put enough time into figuring out what it's actually going to cost to make this thing happen successfully. And so between that and being able to track incoming jobs, I think email is a great way to go. And look, I get it. I don't want to just communicate through email. There's a lot can be lost when we only have a text-based conversation, right? I'm going to miss emotion. I'm going to miss context clues that you and I can have. Like, even in this video chat, I can see your facial expressions, right? I know if you're getting grumpy about something. I know if you're really ecstatic about something. Like, I can see facial expressions, right? And I can hear inflection. So a lot can be lost in text. But like you said, it's documented. We can track it back. We can see it. And what a lot of these systems that you want to look into do are, whether you email me, text me, call me, it all goes in. Like, the CRM can track all of these things. The other thing is when you have a conversation with a client and you have it on the phone, send them a follow-up email immediately about what you just said. Hey, just to be clear, to recap our conversation, this is what we discussed. This is what was agreed upon. This is put it in writing and get them to send you an email back. Yes. Or, hey, I thought this. Now we have it in writing and we can hold them accountable, because the last thing you want, like you said earlier, right? It comes down to a reducer. There's $6,000 on the line. You're waiting on the reducer. You put the reducer in and they're like, well, yeah, but you said you were going to put it in this color. No, I didn't. I said I was going to match the floor. Well, no, I said I wanted it to match the tile. Like, who knows, right? It's going to be something stupid. And it could have been easily dealt with had it not just been verbally based and it was written down somewhere. I can track it back. I can be held accountable. They can be held accountable. I want my money. Put it in writing, folks. Everything. The change orders, everything.
And that is a big thing when you start scaling up. When you're doing 1 or 2 jobs, you probably will remember most of the details if you have a decent memory.
Yes.
But as you go more and more and more, or if jobs that you're doing get more and more complex, like we do a lot of renovation stuff that involves a ton of prep, a ton of details, because you're dealing with an existing building. So it's not like new construction, where new construction is probably the easiest thing you can do, but it's also the lowest margin because it is easy and lots of people want to do it. So we chose to go to the renovation market. And that sort of thing, more retail oriented versus contract oriented. Um, there's more money in it. Renovation rarely dies as bad as new construction.
Yes.
Um, so that the market is more stable, and there's always somebody wanting to like in a bad economy, somebody can't afford to move to a new house.
Yeah.
They'll update the one they're in.
Correct.
So in a bad economy, you actually get more renovation. You do get the guys, the yahoos, coming into the market more when things turn down, uh, trying to do what they do in new homes in a renovation, which is a recipe for disaster. So,
No, like I
but
love residential remodel. I think there's better money. I think it's easier to like. I like being the only contractor in the house. I don't want to deal with a GC. I like going in
yeah,
and being the boss and calling the shots, and it's a little bit cleaner for me. And I can tell them you're not allowed to have anybody else in here, right? You're not going to put the bathroom guy in. You're not going to put the electrician in on top of me. I'm here. It's my floor. Go away. Let me do my
yeah,
thing, and then you can do whatever you want after that. And the last question's like, well,
yeah,
what order should I do? Like, I don't mind doing a little bit of GCing on my project and helping them work through okay, if you're going to do the kitchen has to go first, and then have the painters come
yeah,
in, but tell them you're not going to allow touch-ups until the end of your construction project, and then
yeah,
have this done, and then I'll come in, and then the painters can come back, and then you're all done, right? Like, I can help coordinate some of that stuff. But yeah, people are always going to want to remodel their house. You can look at COVID as the great example of this, right? I get
oh
stuck
yeah,
in my house. I get an influx of money from the government. I'm not spending on any of the things I used to because I'm not allowed to leave my house. And all of a sudden, I've spent so much time in my house, I realized it's really ugly. Let's
yeah, big
change
time.
it. And so it was amazing. It was absolutely awesome. Everyone thought not that the economy didn't take kind of a crap and like factories and stuff got struggled, but for remodel, huge boom because there was nothing else to do. It was the only thing you could do was remodel your house. So it was
Yeah,
fantastic for us. And so I think that's a
I
good
was
thing to
amazed
look
how
at.
much money because people couldn't go on their holidays. I was amazed at how
Hmm.
much money people spent on their holidays.
Oh my
I
goodness.
have a, it's just that's not me. I have a cabin in the bush. It has no power. It's basically a glorified. It's a plywood tent, really. Um, so I don't spend that kind of money, but I was amazed at how much money people do spend on a vacation.
Man, look,
So
I
it
guess
opened my eyes a bit, actually.
yeah. The big thing here is like Disneyland, right? Oh, we got to take my kids to Disneyland or Disney World, and I've looked at it. I don't think I could escape taking my family of four to California or Florida and doing like theme parks for a week for less than 5K.
Yeah,
And so I
yeah,
think that's
it's
probably
insane.
about, it's probably like 7,500 Canadian or so, something roughly, give or take. I don't
Yep.
know, right around there.
Yeah, it's about a third more right now.
But just holy cow. Okay, so now I'm going to shut my business down for a week. So I lost the 5 grand. Then I'm going to go spend 5 grand. Like, it's an expensive week.
Yeah, yeah, it's I'd rather I'm lucky because my kids really never had the urge to go to Disneyland. So their first trip on a plane was actually to Costa Rica.
But even so, but even okay, let's do the exotic thing. Okay, let's go to Costa Rica for a week. It's probably still going to cost me 5 grand because
Yeah,
I got to do it up, right? Like I want to go and I want to have a good time. They got to come back with souvenirs. I want to take them and like, okay, go do some parasailing and go scuba diving, or like let's go do all the really fun things. And
yeah.
look, in the grand scheme of things, to create some memories, is 5 grand worth it for the kids? Sure, but yeah, I guess that's why people had so much money to throw around at renovations,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Because
Well,
it's
some of
not
these.
cheap.
Well, I started realizing. I mean, we live in a city where people there is a lot of money here. And like when you go in, you blow the breaker, and more often than not, you go into the garage to go reset the breaker, and there's a Bugatti, there's some kind of exotic top of the line Mustang,
Hmm.
there's Porsches, there's Ferraris, there's all of these cars. They're just like littering all these. garages. They're on the road a lot, actually.
Interesting.
We've got the same level of cars like that as California and Florida, I think.
Okay.
So it's crazy. But there's also the movie industry here too, so
Yeah.
that
Well, and
doesn't hurt.
a lot of times I wonder, right? So this is where, along with scaling and getting back into like that mediocre kind of clientele thing, is I don't want to work in the trailer parks. I don't want to work with manufactured homes. I think they're absolutely garbage to work in. They just create more issues. And I don't want to go work in the super high-end neighborhoods because a lot of times that stuff is financed and it's all on credit. And those people get really nitpicky because if it's not right, now they're wasting a ton of their money. My ideal client is like that everyday millionaire next door person, right? They still drive the Camry that's, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, but they probably have most of their house paid off. They might own a rental property. Like, they're investing in assets and they live a very moderate lifestyle. They live underneath their, wage, and they can afford to pay cash for stuff. And they don't mind paying high prices for a quality product, and they don't complain, and they understand hard work. They relate to us as like craftsmen a lot more, right? They may not have done a trade to get to where they are, but they probably built a business of their own, or they worked their way up the corporate ladder. Like, they understand that work ethic and what you're trying to do. And they're a lot more easy to relate to, which makes the projects run a lot smoother. It makes selling it a lot smoother. And so I find that to be super easy.
We do the sort of the same thing. We have a lot of business owners as our clients. I think probably because they see the value in what we do and what we offer, and trades guys, actually a lot of trades guys, everybody goes on about, just trades, whatever. There's more money coming into trades than a lot of, like, you can be a computer programmer and all these sorts of things. But honestly, I've done pretty well being a trades guy.
I bet.
And, the fact that I can actually, I have options. I can downscale, upscale the business, whatever. Just being older now, I realize, that more so now that I understand the implications of getting bigger. And I probably would do things somewhat differently. So that's one of the great resources of your show, is that you get to show somebody like me who's coming to the end of all of this, for some younger guys who's like, you really need to know your computer system. You need to, we had a situation where there was a forest fire, 750 meters. So what is that? Half a mile away
give or
from
take, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So half a mile away from, the sun's coming around here. But half a mile away from our shop was a forest fire. We weren't allowed into our shop. We couldn't access the business part. So our computer's sitting there with all of its stuff, nothing backed up, all the history, all the years and years of financials, all my tools. Obviously, I have forklift and trucks and whatever there, and I couldn't get to it. But the biggest thing was, I said to the cops wouldn't let us in. So I said, just let me in for 5 minutes. I'm just going to grab our computer towers and that's it. Nope, can't do that. So
wow,
we were extremely vulnerable. Obviously I fixed that. We have remote backup. We have a server system now with a RAID, a hard drive set up. So a single hard drive failing is not going to kill me.
Yeah.
So but the earlier you learn that in your systems, of course, younger guys are more computer savvy. I'm not going to lie.
Yes and no. I mean, go ahead. I want to say, so, I mean, I did a episode a while back and people were like, dude, why are you covering cybersecurity? Like, what the hell are you talking about? And here you are talking about why it actually mattered. And these are some of the things we covered. Like, if you're not able to get your stuff, if it's all based on one computer, you were literally locked out of your business by police officers because of a fire. And if you had a project going on, now you can't get to your tools, you can't get to the info. How do you operate? Whereas if you would have had a server to log in remotely, you could have gotten the information and, rented some tools and kept going.
Yeah, exactly.
It's super easy. Technology is as much of a hindrance as it is a help. And so I think that's great advice. And these young guys, I think what you're kind of alluding to is that the beauty of this is if you are smart enough to listen, you can cut a bunch of snags out of your journey because you're going to hear the other person's mistake and say, okay, they did this, this, and this to avoid it. So if I go and do these things, I can help avoid that, or at least make it not less of a stumbling block, right? It might be like a pebble in the road instead of a log that you got to get out and chop it down and move it out of the way. And you're by yourself. And like, you only got a hatchet. You don't even have a chainsaw. Like,
exactly.
There's a lot of stuff that you can take away, but you have to go do the work to do it.
Yeah. I don't know if the younger guys realize how much you're a resource, all the social media, and there can be some really ugly exchanges on there. I try to stay polite and Canadian, but there's a lot of stuff out there that we simply didn't have coming up, and there was that hardcore. When you talk to Josh Hansman, you mentioned it is the old school. So I'm the last year of the baby boomers. I'm born in '64.
Okay.
I consider myself more Gen X than baby boomer, but it's a totally different way of coming into stuff now. And I totally agree with a statement I heard on that show was a lot of guys are put off of getting into this because of the attitude of the old school guys. It's like you had to haze them and make their lives completely miserable. It's like, why would you do that? I've never been like that. And I hated when guys did that to me coming up.
Yep.
I just toughed it out and whatever, but should you have to? No, probably not.
So I went to work for a dude when I first started 7.5 years ago or so. And obviously I got to buy all new tools. So everything's nice and shiny and clean and all of that. Right.
Yeah.
So he sees that. He reaches into the dirt on the side of this person's house and he starts throwing dirt at all of my shit. Because it's clean and they can't look clean. We have to look like you can't look new. You have to look like you know what you're doing. Why? Just who cares if you're new?
Well,
what? Who
cares?
It was funny. I was pissed. I was like, that's my stuff, dude. You're going to treat it like you're just going to throw dirt on it. I didn't work for him for very long. That's for sure.
Yeah. No, I hate like when those guys have glue on their table saws and all of that. If I get some glue on my table saw, I take a rag and clean it off right away.
Correct.
It's got to look good. And if it doesn't look professional is clean. Not like the old days when, old school tools and whatever. It had to look clean, in my view. If it looks clean, then they think, oh, that's good.
It can be worn. Yeah, it can be worn, but it needs to be clean. It can be loved, right? Well used, well loved, however you want to put it. But yes, it needs to appear nice. I can't believe people used to hire me in the jalopy I showed up in. I had this 2002 Ford Expedition I bought. Like it was missing the front bumper and like the bottom panel of like that was underneath the bumper, like the paint flaking off of it. Like the fact that people hired me was amazing. But they did, and I was able to like buy a new truck. But like appearance matters, right? If you're the guy that's showing up and you're opening your door and half a week's worth of fast food is falling out and cigarettes and Monster cans, that's a problem. That is an absolute problem. Clean up, look good, show up looking nice. It all comes together. I want to kind of bring us around here. So you're talking about like you're kind of on your way out, but you also have your sons coming in and learning and sticking around. And so you scaled this down to work on because you wanted to be on the tools.
Yeah.
But let's be realistic. You can't be on the tools forever. So do you see yourself stepping back and going to manage more of the office and maybe scaling this thing back up a little bit?
Probably. Yeah. Because I mean, both my sons are able to do, they can work, they like working together.
Mm-hmm.
But I've told them, I said, you make more money if you're working on two jobs rather than one. So, it's just trying to get them used to the idea that they should be able to run their own site and everything else.
Okay.
They still lean on me quite a bit, but, I don't plan on quitting anytime real soon. Plus, I got to pay my mortgage for some reason. But I could see, like, if I'm able to oversee and manage, I can right now, I can easily outsell any capacity that we have right now. I can totally outsell our ability to do the work.
Okay.
And that's not even really trying. I mean, I could do a lot better
So you could,
on that side,
okay.
but I don't need to because I don't have the capacity. So
you have the option to, and then it sounds like you kind of have things in place to better manage everybody now.
Yeah.
And then you don't want to be off the tools. I'm wondering if there's a way that you can kind of, you scale it, your son's split up, so you got to get a little bit more work, but that puts a little bit more in your pocket. And then that adds a little bit of time to finding some extra estimates and doing some work and whatnot, but maybe you manage the office and you take on small repairs or something, right? Like you can still go get on the tools as needed, like to keep yourself happy. And the other option is even
pay well.
They do. Repairs are great. The other thing is like, just like in the conversation with Josh Hansman, he's at a point where he's like, look, I don't want to get off the tools. Okay, don't get off the tools, but you have to find somebody to go manage the office for you. Then somebody's got to manage the business and keep it running, because you can't do two full-time jobs. Well, you can, but you'll kill yourself. Like, it's not worth 16-hour days. So where do you want to be? Do you want to be on the tools 8 hours, or do you want to be in the office 8 hours? Because hire somebody to do the thing you don't like, and you can find somebody that can manage your numbers responsibly, right? You're going to, maybe you only get to be on the tools 6.5 hours a day, and you got to go sit down with the office person an hour a day and go over some stuff. Oh, well.
Yeah, that's probably the best way. Like, I mean, the old rule is hire somebody who's better at than you are.
Correct. Hire the professional,
so if
right?
If somebody likes to do the managing and everything, like in Josh's case, I think he's probably got the right idea, because he's got to find that person. It's hard to find the right people. That's the hardest part about business.
Yes. It's the people.
And that's whether it's an installer, a manager, a receptionist, it doesn't matter. People are the hardest thing to deal with in business.
I agree. Even with all of the systems and processes in place to manage them and hold people accountable, there's still people, and they're unpredictable. You don't know if somebody's wife is going to have something come up, or the kid gets sick, or like, look, I get it. There's a ton of unknowns, but we can try and mitigate it as much as possible and make it successful. And if you can get people to do the things you hate because they like them, then you're going to be more successful, and you hold them accountable to a level, as high of a level as you can. You try and take as many ifs, ands, or buts out of it. And you make the job description very clear. You find them the key performance indicators that they need to hit, and you make it happen. But most small businesses don't have that stuff. How do you?
No, it's hard to teach it too, because our education system doesn't really, and that's Canada, U.S. Europe is a bit better at it, but teaching how to run a business. I mean, I don't have any training at it other than like listening to my dad, who happened to run a company that was pretty successful as well. So you got some good advice. Did I get some bad advice? Probably. And do I give bad advice? Oh, here and there. But it's the thing is that there's no surefire thing on any of this stuff. It's there's so much stuff, and it's not like it's a static world. It changes.
Yes.
So like who I like using fax machines when I'm sending stuff where identity theft can be a problem. I still have a fax machine. It's a multifunction, but it is a fax machine.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, most people don't even think twice about sending a ton of information over email. Email, you should, as a good friend of mine said, is basically, if you wouldn't talk about it in a conversation in the street, don't send it by email.
Okay, so when I was still doing film work, my most productive year, I had to file taxes in like 6 or 7 different states plus federal. And then I had that many, like, I think I had probably like 10 W-2s and probably like another 10 1099s. So I worked for like 20 different companies and I had to piece this all together. But I also had to do that many job starts, right? So it's hard enough when you go in and you got to fill out the start paperwork for one company and you're emailing off your social security card. So you're sitting here talking about like being worried about sending stuff. I would send it to like 20 companies a year. My social security card, my driver's license, just off an email. Here you go. Like it was scanned onto my computer. I have all the pre-filled stuff like sitting in a file. I would just drop it in the email and send it off. Like to me at my age, like I'm just like, yeah, this is totally normal, like whatever. But I also had at the time, now they're paid off, but I wasn't paying on my school loans and I didn't have a ton of money. And I was like, dude, if anybody steals my identity, they can probably only help my credit. So this is cool. Like, I don't mind. They'll probably take out a credit card and make payments on it. So I'm good to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I get it. It's a concern. But at the same time, if you're not, one of the problems I see with the flooring industry is there hasn't been a lot of evolution. I think there is a lot of fight to keep it like this good old boys club, and you have to have a brick and mortar to do retail, and yet the online sales are taking off. Shop at home is taking off. Contractors are getting into finding a way to do sales and kind of trying to cut out the middleman so they can put more money in their pocket. And these are all like natural evolutions, but the industry is fighting against it. And yet if we're not evolving, then we're pretty much signing up to die. You can look at almost any company that didn't evolve. Kodak invented the digital picture and then didn't move into the digital space. Where's Kodak now? Yeah. They don't exist. Yeah, I mean, and they created the thing that killed them.
It's kind of funny. I mean, we had the first truck I had because we were home based, I had a mobile showroom. Unfortunately, wood weighs a lot, so the truck was kind of tilted to one side. But yeah, there's stuff like we're probably, because we're further out in the valley now, away from the city center. I know I'm probably going to lose some stuff back in Vancouver, but we're going to be doing some stuff so we can do video, so to have a tablet at the shop and be able to go around through just like the person is there, and just take them through the showroom, through the sales process. And we figure probably what we can do that way is to narrow down, rather than taking all 400 of my samples with me, just to narrow it down to something like, 2 or 3 samples and say, okay, I'll take that out to the estimate. If you don't think they're good, there's always the option. And we're talking, we're not a low end thing. So
yeah,
for somebody to come out to the showroom for a $20,000 purchase is probably, when you're shopping for a car, you're going to go take a look at, some dealerships, and usually the ones further out away from the city have lower overheads, so they generally better costs.
Yeah.
So a lot of people will do that for a car, but they don't look at it the same way for what we do. But I think that'll change too. But you have to stay ahead of it. So we need a way to show the showroom to somebody who isn't necessarily wanting to make a 45-minute drive. So we're looking at evolving that type of stuff too. So
I have all my products up on my website, so you can see digital images of them. And so you can get an idea. If you want me to bring them straight out to your house, I'll swing by my showroom, I'll pick up the samples and bring them out. But what I try and do is I try and get them to come out and take like 3 to 5 home. And then I take them home. You keep them for a couple of days, right? That because we want to see it in different lights and different room and all of that. And then I'll come out and measure and pick them up because once again, the bigger retail shops are like sending samples out with people and then they're losing samples and having to order new ones and they got to keep multiple copies of everything. I'm small. I'm agile. You take them. I'm coming and picking them up. End of story. And then I get them back. So there's tons of options, but shop at home is getting really big. And I've had people go based off of just what they can see online or using the visualizer. And,
I'm always surprised that somebody would limit themselves, given how many choices are out there. That they would limit themselves because there's a couple of them here. They carry, I don't know, 20 hardwood floors, and they carry couple dozen LVT samples and some carpet samples. Like, given the amount of choice you have today, I'm surprised that somebody would limit their choices that much.
For me, it comes down to like, what are the specs on it, right? Like, I'm only going to carry something that has a good enough wear layer on an engineered hardwood that can be sanded. So that cuts out a lot of stuff on like my luxury vinyl plank selections. If it's not an SPC, I don't carry it. If it's not at least a 4mm core, I won't carry it. It has to have a 20 mil wear layer. So there's like certain specs that I'm trying to hit, but that's so I can limit it down because I'm only operating with 255 square feet. And I'll tell you, it doesn't go very far. I've got a lot of stuff. So that's another reason I think people are limiting, right? I don't have 5,000 square feet of showroom to fill and then another 5,000 square feet and back to like store some product. And so, I'll get asked by having the products on my website, people are searching for specific products and I may not have that floor on my website, but that brand is on my website, right? Whether it's Johnson Hardwood or it's Reward or, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
They're contacting me like, can you get this one? I'm like, oh yeah, I can get it. I just don't have it on my website. It's not a product I would prefer, but if you're looking for a cash and carry deal, yeah, I'll assist you with that, right? Like, let's make the phone call and get you what you want. If that's what you want, hey, I'll sell it to you. More than happy. Yeah. So it's...
I mean, I have a limit to that, and you probably do too, but it's... I mean, we do the same thing. A lot of... probably 90% of our business is adding on to existing floors, sanding existing floors. So they don't really have to choose a product.
Yeah. So
the installs are crazy big. Right. Like we're working on one right now. It's $60,000. We have another one for 80, another one for 60. And that's just January, February. So I don't need to sell a ton of install to keep busy because the jobs seem to be ridiculously large compared to when we used to do just an entry.
Yeah.
But what they've done with the hardwood is that it's gone from sort of a luxury product to it's now assumed to be sort of a standard issue thing. I mean, the Chinese price points have come down that a lot of people can't afford those. Not a product I want to sell myself, but there are definitely people who will sell it.
It's commoditized.
It's been commoditized, definitely. And we never used to have, I mean, when my family started out in it, it was a mom and pop business. The mills, the wholesalers, everything was family run. Now you've got spiffs, you've got all kinds of promotional things.
Yes.
Marketing has come into the business, right? Out of like, I mean, carpet always had that, pad had it, lino, most of it had it. And I remember those from, but we never had, I mean, hardwood was in the 70s and 80s really wasn't a thing. It had died because of carpet.
Yes.
But my dad's shop, we always did it. We never went away from doing hardwood. So
it's an interesting evolution because it was, like you said, it was kind of mom and pop, and now it's coming in and all these larger companies are buying up this distributor, that distributor, trying to make conglomerates and get nationwide and do it. And for as much as big companies are cool, for as much as big companies are cool and it gives you more buying power and whatnot, I'm watching a local distributor continue to buy up, share, bring in executives from other larger companies like other parts of the industry and help guide them and grow them. And I'm wondering what it's going to do to their culture, because it used to be like everybody in the distributor was like a family. Like they were just their own little unit and they were super cool. And and I'm wondering what will this do as they continue to grow, because there's got to be a point where you really just become about numbers. Like, how do you maintain a good culture in your company and make it about the people when you're 1,000 people big, or 10,000 people big? Well, and so I think there's, look, we could go down that. We're running out of time and I got to cut us off. It's what's really happening. I love having these conversations. That's why I do this. We could go all day. But at some point we got to stop it, because the listeners will only listen for so long. So what I want to ask, Ron, is there anything that, real quick, that maybe we didn't hit on about you kind of scaling up and scaling down that you want to make sure people take into consideration when they're scaling up so they don't have the same pitfalls?
I guess look at yourself, see what you're happy with. If running a whole bunch of people doesn't sound like fun, it's probably not going to be. But if you stay small, make sure that you have a business model and margins that are going to keep you going, because on a relative cost basis, a showroom is going to cost a lot more for a small operation than it is for a big one. So just keep scale in mind, but most of all, keep yourself happy. If you're not happy, nobody else is going to.
There it is.
And, that's kind of what, for me, that's what did it. I just wasn't happy anymore. Can ask my wife.
No, I love it, man. That's great advice. It's, if you're not happy doing what you're doing, look, you own a business, find a way to make yourself happy doing your business. Like change it, go to a different bit. I don't know what you need to do, but go be happy in life. Like, you shouldn't be miserable making a living, especially if you're willing to run your own business. That's,
because I mean, running a business isn't for everybody. That's for sure.
Yes.
And for a lot of people, maybe the better option is just to stay as a subcontract guy or hourly guy with a good company. That's not a bad thing. And really, you're probably, for the average guy, you're probably going to be happier doing that than running a company. I would say 1 in 10 people is probably cut out to run a business. You're running a business whether you're contracting it. But,
yeah, thank you. Because I was going to say, like, even if you're, I'm just a subcontractor, if you went and filled out the paperwork to start a company, you're still a company. You got to at least know your numbers so you know if you're making money or not, and you're not living paycheck to paycheck. Like, are the responsibilities a lot less showing up, collecting a work order, going and doing the work? Yes, they are. You're not managing as many people. You don't have the overhead that other shops do and stuff like that. I know what you're saying, but like, as a subcontractor, please take some responsibility in knowing that you have a very small business and you need to still manage it wisely. It's just a lot less than if you're trying to run like 10 crews and, an office staff.
You still, in most cases, you still need your workers' comp, you need your insurance, you need all of that stuff.
Yep.
I ran into a guy doing concrete leveling, a young guy, and he had no WCV. He had like a workers' comp. He had no insurance, no liability insurance, and he's been working in multifamily buildings. And that's like, you need $5 million liability minimum.
Jeez. Yep.
Yeah, well, the laws are 3, but if you're smart, you get more, and it's not that much more. But there's a lot of stuff. But basically, make yourself happy, and that's the number one thing. If you're miserable, you're not going to want to do it anyway, and it makes it a lot harder to wake up in the morning.
That's great advice. I love it. All right, folks. That's going to do it. Ron, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for your insights. I love that you're passionate about this still. I love right at the end, man, that's the golden nugget. Make yourself happy, folks. Like, make it work for you instead of working for it. I think that is absolutely wonderful, wonderful wisdom. So what can we do? Head on over to YouTube, type in Floor Academy, and then hit the subscribe button, please. I got to hit 1,000 followers on YouTube. We're over like 150 now, right? So I need like 850 more. We're getting there one click at a time. So go subscribe, check it out. If you don't want to just listen to Ron and I talk, you can go over there. You can watch the video of it. I'm sure it's much more entertaining to see our facial expressions and stuff go on. Go on over to flooracademypod.com, head over to the shop, check out the gear we got over there. Pick up a t-shirt or something, head over to patreon.com/Floor Academy. Even $5 a month goes a long way in helping the show to continue. And make sure to let a friend know, right? If this show's helping you, it's going to help somebody else. Help them get ahead in business too. Don't keep it all to yourself. Don't be that guy. Let's have that growth mindset, not a scarcity mindset. If everyone in your area is operating at a higher level, then your local area will do better because everyone's doing a better job running their business, right? Let's not be worried about losing work. We work in flooring, folks. Everyone's talking about an installation shortage. So if there's not enough installers, then there's more than enough work to go around. I don't know what you're worried about. Go build each other up. Go charge more, and provide the work that goes with charging more. You can't just charge more arbitrarily. You have to offer something with it, okay? Let's do higher quality work to make more money, right? Let's add more value to charge more money. That's the key, okay? We can't just charge more to charge more. And that's not what this show is about. We are about building something that actually offers value to the client. But with that, you get to have the hefty price tag because we know what we're doing with our business. All right, a couple of closing words here from International Surface Event. We thank them for their help with the show and sponsorship. I just got back from the show. It was an amazing time. I absolutely loved it. Always a blast to get out, connect. It's a great networking opportunity, folks. I don't care what part of the industry you're in. I know a lot of like Ron being a wood floor guy. Look, there's NWFA Expo. Probably a great show. Haven't been. Would love to go. It's geared towards all the hardwood stuff. But Tice has a little bit of everything. So you're going to be able to go and network with people outside of your industry. And I think that's where a lot of magic can happen, right? You get to know a good hardwood guy. You get to know a good guy doing LVP or carpet. You get somebody doing tile. We're making these connections at the show. We're finding a way to help each other out or share information back and forth. And you're going to grow your personal network. And a lot of times your personal network is your net worth. So why wouldn't you get out and meet some people that are interested in growing themselves? Tice is a great event to go to and make that happen. Let alone you get to see all the stuff coming out for the new year, which why wouldn't you want to see what's coming out and you're going to have to work with? You know, if I was subcontracting, I'd be making sure to go to the show. I'd be going back to my retailer saying, that product's garbage. That product's garbage. This product I really liked. You should get this product in. And control what you get to work with, man. Find the stuff that's easy to use and work with and not hard and you have to fight, right? Like, I don't want to have to be putting together an engineered wood floor where the tongue and groove are super tight and I got to beat everything together where I can get another product that's 10 cents more expensive and it just glides together. It may be slightly more expensive, but I'm going to make it up on the labor side because it's easier to work with. So get educated, folks. And that's the point. Go to the show, get educated. It's coming around next year, end of January, early February. So you got a whole year to plan. And I'll tell you what, go look up the dates on the website for next year's show right now and put them on your calendar. Book it out because it's the only way you're going. Schedule it ahead of time. That's the only way it's ever going to happen. I know you because I do it. Oh, I'm going to go to that training. I'm going to go do this thing. It comes and goes because it wasn't on my calendar and I didn't block it out. I'm going to book a job over it because I got to get the money. I'm not going to get another job if I don't take this job. Yes, you will. You always do. All right. That's the end of my rant. Surfaces is a great time. Go check out Tice and enjoy it. www.intlsurfaceevent.com. All right, folks. Thanks again. We'll catch you next week. Ron, a pleasure. Thank you.